The Midnight Dance by CartoonNerd12. Chapter 9. Rarity was walking along the hallway, looking over the exquisite tapestries her mother and father had collected before she or any of her sisters were born. She sighed as she remembered King Sombra being a true gentle colt, and was proud of the fact that she inherited most of his refined traits from him. She yearned for her dear father at a time like this. Suddenly she heard a piano playing a haunting melody, and noticed it was coming from the next room over. She peeked her head in and was surprised to see Fancy Pants playing on the grand piano. The notes he were playing were both beautiful and sad at the same time. As if it were calling to her, she slowly moved towards the sound without Fancy taking notice. He was too caught up in his music to see her coming to him. When he finished his last piece of the music, he gave a loud sigh, but he stiffened when he heard her voice. "You play beautifully." He turned to face her. "Rarity! How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough. You never told me that you play piano."
"Oh, this? It was just something I do when I get time off from my duties."
"Have you ever considered performing in front of an adoring crowd?"
"Sometimes, but not really. I'm not good enough."
"Nonsense! I can tell you are very good. You should pursue this talent."
"That's very kind of you," he smiled. "But I like serving the royal family." "To serve—"
He stopped and turned his head away. "To serve who?" She raised her eyebrow. He turned back and whispered,
"You."
Her eyes widened. "Really?"
"Yes."
He sighed as he couldn't hide it anymore.
"Rarity, seeing you every day always makes me happy. You always treat me as if I were an equal, even if you're a princess and I'm a lowly butler."
"You are nothing of the sort," she protested.
"Let me finish. I know you have feelings for me, as I have feelings for you."
She gasped. You do?" Her eyes filled with tears of joy.
"Yes. It pained me to tell you we couldn't be together. How could we? You are to marry any day. At this point, what hope do I have of being with you?"
He lowered his head after he had finished. "Oh, Fancy." She lifted his chin. "If there is any pony I am going to marry, it'll be you."
"What?"
"Let me explain. My sisters and I have a secret plan of making sure suitors leave us alone, so that we can marry whoever we want. So, Fancy Pants, if you will have me, will you be my very special sun pony?"
He smirked. "I think this will answer that."
He started playing a different song on the piano and started singing.
"Do I love you because you're beautiful? Or are you beautiful because I love you? Am I making believe I see in you? Am I too perfect to be really true? Do I want you because you're wonderful? Or are you wonderful because I want you? Are you the sweet invention of a lover's dream? Or are you really as beautiful as you seem?"
She smiled brightly, singing this time. Am I making believe I see in you a stallion too perfect to be really true? Do I want you because you're wonderful? Or are you wonderful because I want you? Are you the sweet invention of a lover's dream? Or are you really as wonderful as you seem? He then played for a while, with her joining him on the piano, and finally they finished the song. Are you the sweet invention of a lover's dream? Or are you really as wonderful as you seem? They leaned into a kiss until the chimes on a nearby clock made them realize what time it was.
Uh-oh, time to get down there and prepare for dinner,
said Fancy Pants, getting up. You do that, and I shall see you there. She gave him a wink. He beamed at her gesture and kissed her hoof, causing her to blush before parting ways. The clock tower outside the castle started bogging, and that woke Applejack up from her nap underneath the apple tree. She was surprised to see a purple dragon sleeping on her. She felt her cheeks redden at the sight, and it turned out her theory was right about his scales being soft and even. He was still sleeping, and though she hated to wake him up, she knew that they would have to get to the kitchen soon and help make dinner for the entire castle. She used her tail to lightly brush against his nose that made him twitch slightly. She kept it up until he woke up with a sneeze that sprouted fire at the same time. She giggled, "Rise and shine, sleepyhead. We have to get back now." "Aw, already? Feels like we just got here. And frankly, I could stay here forever." He rested his head back on her. "Nice try." She got up, causing him to fall back. "But I'm not a pillow."
You might as well be. You're so soft and warm.
He gazed at her. Her cheeks went flushing again, and then she replied, "Well, you're soft too, you know." "Oh, these scales may be soft, but they're also as tough as nails." He found a pin on her work dress he wanted to use as an example. She realized what he was going to do, and dread came over her. "Spike, don't!" But it was too late, for he was already putting the pin on his back. "Are you all right?" He gave her a smug look and waved off her question. "Oh, I'm fine. Doesn't even hurt at all, because I can't feel it. These are thick scales, after all." How did you know you could do that?" "When you've been Rarity's pincushion as long as I have, you get used to it." She chuckled. "Maybe, but I don't exactly have protected scales like you do." "So you don't, but you don't need 'em. You're already tough as it is. Why would you need protection?" "How noble of you to say." She smiled at him, and they ended up staring at each other until another bong on the clock tower reminded them of the time. "We better go." "Right!" He started running, but was suddenly lifted off the ground, and the next thing he knew he was on Applejack's back. "I figured this would be quicker," she told him. He beamed and said, "It is! Thanks." "You're welcome. Now, hold on tight." She started galloping faster, with him holding onto her neck, and he liked it. Rainbow and Soarin sat atop a fluffy white cloud, while watching her mother setting down the sun and her Aunt Luna slowly raising the moon.
Have you ever thought about... started Soarin as he stared at the night sky. Thought about what? Rainbow asked him. Have you ever thought about flying up to the stars and trying to grab one of them? Oh, sure. That thought crossed my mind a long time ago. I even asked Aunt Luna if it was possible. And is it? Only if you're fast enough to catch one, she told me. Whoa, so it is possible. You want to try? Yeah!
He started flying again, and they went high into the starry sky. Then he smirked and began to sing. She rolled her eyes and smirked back. Both of them sang as they started chasing shooting stars. Soarin sang while gesturing to a star they could grab. Rainbow sang while grabbing for it. Both failed when reaching it, but ended up catching each other in a loving embrace. They slowly moved into a kiss. The family sat at the dinner table as they were looking around to see if Blueblood would show up. The girls were hoping that Rainbow finally did the job of getting rid of him, as she said that she would. She even winked to tell them that she was sure that she did. When Blueblood didn't show, they gave out silent, relieved sighs. "Well, my darlings, it would appear that Cousin Blueblood has decided to no longer court any of you, so now we must wait until the next suitor arrives." "And if there isn't?" Rarity calmly asked without giving away her inside joy. "We shall wait and see." The family resumed their dinner, while the princesses were silently praying that no more suitors came. When the girls retired to their quarters, and once they knew the rest of the castle was asleep, Twilight stepped on the tiles and the portal opened up. Instead of dancing like they did the other night, they decided to sit in a circle of the golden ballroom of the magical castle. Since no suitors have been coming, Maybe that'll convince Mother to give up on this notion of marrying us off. Twilight said, I certainly hope so, darling, said Rarity. Now that Fancy Pants and I... She covered her mouth and blushed. Her sisters gave her sly grins, with Applejack saying as she smirked, what? Oh, sisters, it's just wonderful. He finally told me that he loved me. They practically shrieked at the news, giving her a huge hug. And then Pinky said, Cheese and I are together too. They shrieked again and hugged Pinky this time. Oh, I might as well say it, said Rainbow Dash. But Soarin and I are going out too. They gave another huge shriek as they tightly hugged their hardcore sister. I am so happy for all three of you, said Fluttershy. Yeah, when did this happen exactly? Said Applejack. Today, all three said, and were surprised by the other's answer. Whoa! Twilight gaped. That is weird. Applejack agreed. Well, what about you three? Rarity pointed to her other three sisters. Surely you have a cult or such you admire. All three of them blushed. AJ rubbed her hoof, while Twilight and Fluttershy turned their heads away. Oh my gosh! Pinky jumped up in excitement. They do! Come on, AJ. Dash nudged the tough princess. Who's the cult you have a crush on? Applejack started blushing furiously. Well, he's not exactly a cult. The rest of them gave her a confused look until she admitted, he's a dragon. She turned her head away to avoid their gaze. All at once they shouted out, Spike! She nodded in embarrassment. Whoa! Rainbow flew up in shock. Who knew? Pinky motioned. You and Spike? Rarity gasped. Oh my! Fluttershy smiled, telling them, You have to admit, they would make a cute couple. Twilight mumbled, Now I know why he wanted to help her out. He must have known. Then she sighed deeply, and that got her sister's attention away from Applejack and onto her. Twilight? Rarity asked, Is everything all right? She slightly chuckled. You know, he asked me the same question. They all gave her puzzled expressions, while trying to figure out what she meant. She went on, explaining, Do you know that new guard? Flash Sentry? They nodded, and she kept talking. Well, I met him the first night he came to the castle, and I managed to hide my real identity from him, because I wanted to know him more. Thing is, I'm tired of hiding it from him any longer, but at the same time, I don't want to lose him. She was almost on the verge of tears. Rarity did a small smile and put her hoof around her, and Pinky and Rainbow did the same thing. I think we can relate. We've all been there, said Rarity, and the other two nodded their heads. You can? Their little sister asked. Yes. When I first knew Fancy, we were on a professional relationship at first. But then, one day, we were able to talk to one another, and now we finally get to be with each other. Soarin and I, well, we weren't exactly tight either when we met. It was kind of the same thing like it was with Rarity and Fancy. But once we hung loose, we totally got along. And I was just one of Cheese's best customers before we both showed our fun side more and did about every party afterwards. Twilight smiled for a bit, but then frowned. But what if he hates me for hiding the truth? Sweetie, you're going to have to tell him, because he is going to find out eventually. Rarity gestured. Mm-hmm. They solemnly nodded his head. But will he still like me? Would he understand? That's just something you're going to have to find out, Twa, pointed AJ. And if he's not the cult of your dreams, then that's his loss, not yours, comforted Rarity. Thanks, girls. I don't know what I would have done without you. Do you want to go to him now, while you have the chance? Questioned Pinky. You know, that's a good idea. I'll be right back. She ran out to the boat. Good luck! Rarity waved her off. And if he does break your heart, let your big sis know. Rainbow put her hooves together and rubbed them. Twilight did a giggle. Well, I hope it won't come to that. She set course back to the cave. Now, Rarity turned back to the rest of the sisters. While Twilight comes clean with a potential love interest, We're going to figure out a way to get our loves to be our husbands instead of, other royals. We certainly don't want another blue blood to be here. Wait! Pinky jumped while waving. Fluttershy hasn't told us about her crush yet. Fluttershy immediately went pink. Oh, it's nothing. I'm not sure it's even a real crush. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Pinky went into her face. But we're not wearing any pants. Fluttershy whispered as she winced. Come on, who do you have a burning sensation to? Pinky pleaded. No pony. Oh, Fluttershy, I don't believe that for 1 second. Rarity said as she pointed out. You have all the symptoms. Blushing cheeks, knees buckling, a pounding heart, perspiring at a mention of a crush. You are first and foremost in love with some pony. So, who is it? She gulped again. I can't say! She yelled and crouched down to weep. They were surprised at this reaction. They didn't mean to put so much pressure on her. Oh, Sugar Cube. Applejack went to her and stroked her head. We didn't mean to force it on you like that. We were just curious, after all. But you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. The only reason I told you all about Spike was because I needed to help figuring out how I feel about him. But if you don't think you need to tell us, then don't. She slowly lifted her head. Really? Every one of her sisters gave nods and warm smiles. Thank you. How's this? Suggested Rarity. Let's have a dance to take our mind off of things. Fluttershy gave a final sniffle and nodded. Pinky bounced and shouted with joy. Then let's party! Bring out the music! I wish for it! The flowers heard her, and the instruments from last night appeared again, and they started moving to the sound. As much as Fluttershy was able to dance, she felt guilty for not telling her sisters about her true feelings. They had been so open about their love lives that she was forced to hide hers. All because she knew about how they would feel about a pony or a Draconiquus how deeply she cared about. They would not be able to understand, and would tell her to pursue a cult that she liked better. But she did not want that. She wanted discord. Twilight moved quietly down to the servants' quarters. Once she reached the room, she opened the door and spotted Flash in a bed. She tiptoed towards him to make sure she didn't wake up the other servants sleeping there. She reached him and slightly shook him awake. He moaned out of his sleep as he was facing her. Once he saw her face more clearly, he nearly shouted out, Twilight! But she covered his mouth to shush him and gestured for him to follow her. They slowly walked out of the room, and once they got out, she took him to her library, making sure they were all alone.
Twilight, what happened this afternoon? Did I offend you in some way? Because when you didn't come back, I was afraid I'd never see you again.
Oh, Flash, no. Nothing's your fault. I was just upset at myself.
But why?
She gave a very deep sigh and said, Because I haven't been very honest with you.
What do you mean?
For starters, my name isn't Twilight. Well, it is, but that's more of a nickname since I go by another name.
So, what's your real name?
She took a deep breath and said without hesitation, Twilight Sparkle. She waited for a moment to see how he would react. Flash stood still and was processing what he had just heard. She had just said one of the names of the princesses. That was her name. She was the princess. He thought, oh no, I must have sounded so stupid to her. Flash? She questioned as he was not moving. Well, say anything. Something.
I can't believe it. The princess? You were the princess? The whole time?
You would have found out anyway, she said, lowering her head.
But why? Why not tell me sooner?
For the very reason you were just standing around when I told you the news. I wanted you to know me for who I was. I wanted you to know me.
Oh, Twilight. Twilight.
He did a little chuckle.
Personally, I like Twilight better.
Strangely enough, so did I. She smiled at him, to which he returned, and they both began to laugh. Once they finished with their amusement, all they could do was stare at each other. I I should be getting back. She blushed before starting to turn to go. And you should go back to sleep. You have important guard duties to do tomorrow, after all.
Not as important as it is to guard the princess right now.
He smirked. Oh, you. Don't worry. I'll be fine.
Sure you don't want me to escort you back to your room? It would be my privilege if I did so.
Well, all right, she gave in. They walked side by side as they finally made it to the large bedchamber. They gave each other a quick good night, and she went back to go into the portal. Shortly after, she joined her sisters in a dance, feeling more than happy to do so.